Is the flipped classroom dead? Some of you are probably like, is it even alive? Like, what even is that? Oh, let me explain. So before we get into, is the flipped classroom dead, alive, what the world? Let's talk about what it is, right? So in a traditional classroom, right? So if we're gonna wrap our minds around what this whole flipped classroom is, we really should understand what a traditional classroom is. So let's, for instance, just take math, because that's really simple and everybody's taking math, so we could probably understand this. So in your math class, whether you're a teacher or a student, what's happening when you are in class? The teacher is up at the board explaining the new formula and showing you all of the things, right? It's the I do piece, where the teacher is at the board showing that I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna show you how I do this, so that then we can do, which most of the time that's also in the class as well. So I do, the teacher, up at the board showing all of the things, and then the we do part where the teacher and the student, they kind of work together, make sure that mistakes aren't being made. And then class is over because that took the whole time. So that's what's done in the traditional classroom. So what's done at home in a quote traditional classroom? That would be homework, right? Which is that dead? I don't know. But anyway, let's stick to the point here. What does that homework look like? Well, it's normally the you do part, meaning the student. It's the practice, it's the application, it's doing the things over and over and over again, which, let's face it, is the harder parts of learning. So put very simply, you take those two things, what is traditionally done in the class, content delivery, what is traditionally done at home as homework, the practice and the application, and you flip it. Now, the harder parts of learning are done in your classroom, in your presence, and in the presence of their peers, so that when they are making those not so great mistakes, which you want them to make so that they can learn from them and be better having made the mistakes, you want those happening in your presence. You want those happening in real time so that you can correct them and move forward with them in real time. Simple as that. That is a flipped classroom. Because in a traditional one, if a student makes a mistake at home in their homework, A, they probably don't even know it, and B, when they finally find out the next day when you're checking their homework in some format and fashion, then you have to go back and correct a mistake that not only did they make, but then they slept on it. Psych nerds. We know what happens when we sleep after we learn something. It becomes next to solidified in our brain and even harder to change. So flip it. Flip the flippin' flip out of it is what I say. So that's what we're talking about in this video. Is it dead now that we're in this like kind of post pseudo pandemic world? And education's different, right? Like no question about, I mean, we have all kinds of questions about pandemic stuff, but there's no question that things are different. So is the flipped classroom dead? Stick around, let's find out. Well, hey there, and welcome to my channel. I am Mandy Rice of teachonamission.com and the Sustainable Teacher Podcast. If you're in the podcasting bandwagon, you should head on over and check it out. New episodes coming out every Tuesday. But here we are bringing you weekly content to inspire and invigorate your love of teaching in a way that allows you to be a good teacher and have a personal life. Because yes, you can have both. That's spelled B-O-T-H. Both. It's a thing, even as a teacher. And I would love it if you would come hang out with me on the Teachergram, Instagram, whatever you want to call it, so we can get to know each other a little better. And as always, if this video is something that you're watching and you're like, me too, make sure you click like and click that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos that I have coming out for you every Sunday. All right, is the flipped classroom dead? Let's get to it. So we already talked about what is the flipped classroom and was it ever even alive? Actually, it has been alive for like quite some time. Just Google it. You'll find all kinds of things. Hopefully my website can also be of assistance to you. You can find some stuff, and I'm going to talk about some stuff a little later, but you'll find all the links and information down in the description below. So here's the thing, it absolutely was a thing, and then the pandemic happened, right? And my online course that I have called Flipped Classroom Formula, which I had only ever launched and had a cohort of teachers go through once before the pandemic happened. Then the pandemic happened, I'm like, oh, I gotta get this out. And I had another little cohort go through, and then it exploded. And tons of teachers, right, benefited from the technique that was flipping, whether they took my course or not. A lot of teachers were essentially implementing the flipped classroom techniques because they had no other choice. And to an extent, you probably did too, and your students got to benefit from it. But here's the thing, teachers who were flipping beforehand almost had kind of, sorry to say it, like a little bit of, sorry, just like threw my glasses across the table, had a little bit of an advantage there because their students were already in the habit of learning through their teachers' videos. So that begs the question, what about now, right? Like we're back in the classroom. So is it dead? Is the flipped classroom dead? The complicated answer is yes and no. I know I should really just pick one, but let me explain what I mean here. The term itself of flipped classroom, I'm kind of going on a limb here, but the term itself of flipped classroom is going to go away. I'm calling it. It's going to go away. And that's because the technique is going to be so widely used. So we like to name things in education. It becomes all like trendy and like the new initiative. And let's name, are you doing that new trendy thing? Are you doing that new trendy thing? And so we like to have a name for it. I'm telling you that this is not just a trendy thing. And so I think the name for it is just going to go away because the technique is going to be so widely used. It allows teachers to teach all of their students, no matter how their students report to them, right? So during the pandemic, and to an extent still, our students are reporting to us either in person, in a hybrid, blended, whatever the heck you want to call that, and sometimes completely remotely. So when our preps, meaning how many classes of human beings we were preparing materials for, went through the roof in the pandemic, they kind of stayed there and might even still kind of be there. But if you take advantage of a flipped classroom technique, you are streamlining, essentially, what is your synchronous stuff and what is your asynchronous stuff so that all of your students get the same experience. That sounds life-changing post-pandemic, does it not, right? So not only is it more sustainable for you in having exponentially more preps, streamlined down back to where they should be, but it's also more effective for your students. If you're not sure about this, you should absolutely check out some of my other videos where we get down and dirty about the flipped classroom. So back to that complicated answer. Is it dying? Yes. Is it dying? No. No, it's not dying. It's not going to, much like we thought this about computers and online stuff, and people are saying about the whole like personalized learning thing. It's going to replace teachers. I'm going to put a stake in the ground right now that teachers are never going away because teaching is a fundamental human experience. Why? Because learning is a fundamental human experience. I believe we were put on this earth to learn from one another. Sometimes we kind of suck at it. Just look at history, right? But that's what I believe, to learn from other people. And that is the beauty of becoming an educator, is you get to do that like a lot. And if you really like it, that's really great. So no, the flipped classroom, that technique, all the online personalized learning, differentiation stuff, no, it's not going to replace the human beings that are educators in this world, who are my people. Teachers are my people. Here's what it is going to do and why it's not dying. It's going to use you, who is the most powerful and most expensive, rightfully so, educational tool in your classroom. That's you, my friend. Step into that role confidently, and I hope I can be here for it to see you do it. I want to see you step into the most powerful educational tool in your classroom and confidently rock that role day in and day out. And the flipped classroom is going to make a better use of you and your time when you are in the presence of your students. Remember what we said? We take what's traditionally done in and outside of a traditional classroom and we flip it so that now the harder parts of learning are inside of your classroom and in your presence. Now you get to conference one-on-one with students. You get to remediate and reteach and differentiate and conference and small group time. And the limits are endless and non-existent. Think of all the things that you have ever wanted to do inside of your classroom and had to just be like, oh, well, I guess I'm not getting to that because ain't nobody got time for that. Had to scratch it out the calendar because of 14 snow days or all those fire drills or whatever. I was sick or all the kids are whatever. Now, because of the flipped classroom, your students are still getting the content from you. In more accessible ways. And it provides more time in your classroom to do the harder parts and more effective parts of learning, right? Solidifying all those things up in their brain in your presence, so that mistakes are welcomed in the messy but beautiful learning environment that is your classroom, right? And kids get to thrive off of that, as do you, teacher friend. So no, it's not dying. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here, okay? Maybe this is a stretch, I don't know. Get in the comments. Let me know if you think, no, Mandy, I'm tracking right along with you. It is not a stretch. Or you could say, yeah, girl, nope, I don't get it. Nope, I'm not tracking you. That's way too far. You went too far. No, you went too far. Here's what I mean. To me, the flipped classroom is the best. See, I told you it was a stretch. I told you I was going out there. It is the best way for 90%, because you can't say everybody. I'm going to say mostly everybody. There's no silver bullet. For 90% of teachers, that is effective with their modern day 21st century student, and capital A-N-D, and sustainable for them. That is the teacher, you, teacher friend, allowing you to leave work at work and to leave work on time and not have to sacrifice how great of a teacher you are while you're there. Remember what I said in the intro? Both. B-O-T-H. You can have both in your life. Be a great, effective educator with your students and have a personal life. And I believe it's the flipped classroom that allows you to do that. So that's what I think, right? Like, I'm just little old me here talking at my desk in my home office. But that's what I think. So get in the comments. Tell me what you think. Do you think it's dead? Do you think it's alive and well? Have you never heard of it? I don't know. Get in the comments. Tell me wherever you are in the phases of knowing about the flipped classroom. But I'm here to say the term might go away, right? But that is only because the technique is so alive, so darn alive. So none of that really means anything, talking about is the flipped classroom dead or alive, if we don't talk about somehow, right? Just somehow on how to get started. Okay, Mandy, I get it. Like, yeah, this is a technique. It's alive. Maybe I want to give it a shot, right? Let's see how this goes. Well, let me give you some steps on how to get started, right? Step number 1, decide. You gotta make some decisions here. You have to decide on one class or subject area and the how. You have to decide on the what and the how. So what does that mean? Well, which class are you gonna do this to? I have been saying this since I started teaching Flipped Classroom Formula online to professional development for teachers. Choose one class that you are going to flip. And I stand by that even to today. Make it work, get great at it in one content area, one subject, one class, whatever that looks like, depending on your level. And then in a couple years, give it a go on another one, because this is not a small undertaking. There are ways that you could jack it up. Your flip could flop. Can we just say that? And that'll be another video coming soon, guaranteed. So you need to decide on what class you're going to flip. And if you're in the elementary space, what subject area? Are you gonna do math, reading, writing? What are you gonna do? Then also decide how. How are you going to flip? How, meaning, when are your students going to watch your video? In a traditional flip, which is what I did for my 11th and 12th grade advanced placement students, we did a traditional flip where my students watched the video at home. They came to class with those scaffolded guided notes and we dove deeper there. In my 10th grade on level American history class, there was no way in Sam H-E double hockey sticks. I like to spell things around here, I guess. There was no way they were gonna do homework. It just wasn't a thing. It was an uphill battle. It was pulling teeth. It was swimming upstream. All the analogies about things that are hard. And it wasn't a battle I was worth fighting. How many analogies did I get? So in my on-level 10th grade American history class, my students, we did an in-class flip. So that meant most weeks on like a Monday and a Thursday, for the first 15 to 20 minutes of class, they were watching no longer than a 10-minute video that delivered the content with them. Now, they were doing this on their own devices, not on the board, because that defeats the purpose. And that really is a lazy person's way out and just is not good. So don't do that. Please don't do that. So on their own devices, at their own pace, did a little differentiated kind of assessment at the end, and then they had a task to complete for the rest of the bell. What was I doing then? Conferencing with students, talking to that student who is absent, not treating them like they were a total nuisance to me having been absent. Because that's a thing when you have to do the song and the dance every single day. You can't talk to your kids that have been absent. If you do, it's on your and their time after class. And can we just stop? Can we just stop doing that? Let's use our class time to effectively talk to all of our students. But the only way we can do that is if we make our content more accessible. I was also, dare I say it, checking my email, sitting down to take a drink of water, right? I was running a copy to the copy room to make copies for next week's lesson, all the other 50 bajillion things we have to do as educators. But most of the time I was, in fact, all jokes aside, conferencing with students, having the come to Jesus talks with a lot of them. Hello, are you gonna care? Right? And not to be silly about serious conversations, but having those serious conversations and meaningful conversations with my students. And even ones that are about the content. Could you imagine that? Talking to individual or small group students about the content on a daily, if not weekly, if not daily basis. That's freaking awesome, right? Okay, so step 1, decide what and how. Step 2, do it over the summer, right? Guys, like I said, this is no small undertaking and your flip could flop. It absolutely could. So take the time to do it over the summer when you have the space, both mentally and calendarly, to really commit some time and thought and intention behind it. But if you're like, no, I can't wait, I have to do this now, do it over a long break, right? So in the States, if you're watching there, we have a longer break coming up-ish, right? So take it 1 unit at a time if you can't make the big flip over a summer or something like that. Now, don't do it just 1 lesson and then go back to, things as usual, because students smell that. They smell it. They smell that you're just trying something out and they're like, man, we don't have to try because she's just gonna change it back. Don't do that. Do it for at least an entire unit. But if you're like me and the way that I did it after my 2nd year teaching, I went all in. We're doing this and I don't want to hear it. And we just did it. Step number 3, map it out. This is no new concept to teachers, right? What will your video cover? What will you use inside of that video? If you've taught the class before, you already know this because you've essentially done your video. You just haven't filmed it. Right? Then what will your students do to practice, right? And dive deeper, meaning what are you gonna do in class, right? So what's your video gonna look like? What's it gonna cover? What are they gonna do in class to dive deeper and practice? And how will you know it worked? Map those 3 things out, which you probably are doing, right? Rinse and repeat until the end of the unit. Here's the other thing. It's not really a step 4, so I probably shouldn't be holding out step 4. I gave you step 1. Decide what and how. Step 2, do it over the summer. Can't wait. Do it over at least a long break and make sure you do it a unit at a time, not just 1 lesson. Step 3, map it out. What's your video gonna be? What are they gonna do to practice in class? And how are you gonna measure to know it worked? Rinse and repeat. Now, to get all of this laid out, because it's not just 3 steps to start flipping your classroom, it's not. To get all of this laid out, please go grab my Flip Classroom Starter Kit, which is on our website and is linked down in the description. So make sure you go and grab that ASAP. All right, teacher friend, that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that this was helpful in reaching what is my goal, at least selfishly, and that is to reinvigorate your love of teaching, but to do it in a way that is both effective for your students and sustainable for you. We have to get teachers making it in the classroom, right? To where you can be a good teacher and have a personal life. Yes, it's possible, and I'm here to help you achieve that. Yes, can we do that? Personal lives are good. We should all have them, right? Let's have one of those. Subscribe so you don't miss that video coming out every single week, and I will see you next time. Bye.